Tuesdays are her big day.
Kids are free today?
Tuesdays are her big day.
Oh, it's like.
All right.
Mondays are.
Are you getting feedback on that, Jessica? Well, hopefully we're not getting too much feedback, and we'll get started. One of the things that I was asking actually some of my functional medicine patients, turn your mic off. I know it's off on, I would say that you probably just turn your phone. Were you on StreamYard on here?
No.
No.
This is off.
You know, that should be off. And we are unmuted there. I don't know. Always with the technical difficulties.
Isn't this on Facebook Live?
Can I turn it, maybe that's, can I turn the sound down off of this? Because that's, I think I'm hearing it again.
Now let's see how that goes. Yeah, it should be on Facebook and it should be on Instagram. It should be on all of them. So
Okay.
it will be recorded and it'll live on there for just a little bit of time. But one of the things is, think about what you would like to get out of a class like this. And for my functional medicine patients that are attending, they were both like, well, we would like to maybe get some information that we don't already have or know. So hopefully we will impart a little bit of that to you. We do have the questionnaires. If anybody hasn't filled out their questionnaire, if you need a pen, just say so. They're right there. And I would like to welcome you to the Get Your Mojo Back class, because this is when we look at the framework that Integrated Health of Indiana does. We have a framework that goes through the neuroendocrine, the GI, and then doing detox to help restore the body's function. Because we believe that the power that made the body can heal the body. We just have to get out of the way. And our choices make a difference on how the body actually does. So we need to make sure that we are out of the way of the body, we allow the body, we remove the impediments to healing, and then we allow the healing to happen. So of course we have the obligatory medical legal stuff, and this is because we cannot guarantee results. Everybody in here is an individual. We all have our individual experiences, we all have our individual biochemistries, and it is both illegal and unethical for a doctor to say, I know what's wrong with you and I can fix it. Because you don't. I haven't lived in your shoes. This is where we talk about it's a path. We have to go through and figure out, I have to get to know you. You can ask our patients. Our first exam is like a 3-hour exam. We have to get to know you, know your past. We'll talk about several patients that we've had, that these patients go from having childhoods that were uneventful to one who was hospitalized multiple times, multiple rounds of antibiotics, and just from there on out has had issues. And we are slowly bringing those things around. And then, of course, we're going to show you the ones that sit there and say, hey, I think I have this. I'm going to work on it myself, and I'll tell you how I did it. So for those of you that have finished your questionnaires, we're going to go over this real quick. And what I want to show you is on the HPA Access questionnaire. Mine got folded there. There are 3 sections. There's the first section, second section, third section. This is where a little math comes in, so grab your cell phones, turn on your calculators, because you're going to need them. And what I want you to do is look at section 1. And on section 1, you're going to add up all the numbers that you put in those first 16 blanks. So just go down the line and start to add. If you answered 1 for 1, you add 1. If you answered 2 for 2, you're now 3. Add up 1 through 16. And And then just what I did when I took this, I just wrote it to the side. As soon as you're done with that, you do the same thing for the next section. So 17 through 23, you just add those numbers up. So whatever you did on 17, whatever you did on 18, all the way through 23, you add those up, and you write that number out to the side, because we're going to come back to it. And then last but not least, on the HPA Access questionnaire, you take those last three and you add those last three up. Section 1 relates to what is called a low cortisol state. Cortisol is the hormone that is in you that gets you up. You're going to see a test that we do called the cortisol awakening response. Your cortisol can be low for several reasons. You could be in an acute stage of stress, and your cortisol is slowly being fatigued out. You could also be in a chronic stage of stress where you're starting to fatigue your hormones, and you start to lose a hormone that is called DHEA-S. And if you're starting to lose these hormones, you can no longer produce cortisol. So here's something that's very important to know and to figure out. When you're looking at this, when you're unmotivated, and this is why we start with the neuroendocrine system. If you have no energy and you're unmotivated, we have to start to turn that around, because you will not be able to follow through on anything if you don't feel like it. Because you have the choice to just say, nah. And we don't want that. So it's also very important to know why. And because I am a Christian, I am Catholic, I believe in God, everybody has to have some belief system. You can be agnostic, and if you're agnostic and you believe in Mother Earth, nature, whatever the case may be, there's an order to everything. I'm not here to judge. I'm here to say you have to know why, what is the purpose, why are you doing this? Because like anything else, if it was easy, everybody would do it. And the way that you keep yourself motivated is by knowing your why. We want to travel. We want to be there for our kids. We have 3 girls that have CP. We have 2 boys that are quote unquote normal, but we have these children that we want to be there for if they need us. But we also want to travel around. She wants to do travel nursing in other countries. I'm going to go along for the ride because chiropractors are useless in that instance. I can adjust people, but when it comes down to getting rid of infections and doing that stuff, you can't beat our medical system. That's just the way it is. But when you want our medical system to attack diabetes, when you want our medical system to attack chronic disease, it's not really designed for that. They don't have the time. I'm not saying they don't have the knowledge. They don't have the time to sit with you and say, these are the choices that you have to make. These are the things that you have to do. I know lots of highly intelligent medical doctors that have left active practice, have opened up private practice, and they do what I do. Now, I am IFM certified, so I'm one of 2,000 people in the world that is IFM certified. So they don't all have that, but I do have 1,999 other colleagues that have the IFM certification. So once you have those 3 numbers, you are going to take section 1, that number, and divide it by 64. Told you get your calculators out. If you have a calculator, share. If somebody needs help. That's what this is all about. Yes. We're over here. This is depression, anxiety, and stress. We're over here at the HPA axis. The HPA axis is hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenal. And the reason why we start to look at hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenal is because your adrenal glands sit on top of your kidneys. They help produce chemicals and hormones that help your thyroid run, that help your gut heal, they help your body maintain itself. And it kind of is, I call it the RPM, the tachometer and the speedometer. I like car analogies. That's the way I am. I'm a guy. Sorry, God bless. But it tells you how hard you're running your car. Section 2, you're going to take that number and divide it by 28. My first number was 0.25. My second number was 0.32. And on the third section, we're going to divide that by 12. And mine was a 0.25 there also. So, as you look at these, you can start to take these numbers and look at, so your 0.08, your 0.109, 107. So when we start to look at you and we say, hey, how do we prioritize what is happening? You are hitting more of a low cortisol state, which we have your adrenal thing and we know that's true. So we have to prioritize things that help raise your cortisol. So we look at progesterone, we look at pregnenolone, we look at those types of things that happen. So one, two, and three is calibers in the order, right? When we look for you, we see that you get a high cortisol state. And so we want things to calm that down. Who does that sound like? What did your lab show? And so this is where we use things like phosphatidylserine. This is where we use those things to smooth out that cortisol curve. But once again, we know with you, we have to worry more about getting you to calm down. And we have to worry more about her coming up. And in order, you can order those and see how you kind of fall out. And that's where when we look at this for an HPA axis, when we look at that state of stress, she tends to fatigue out, you get amped up. You probably work a little better under pressure. She will tend to be like a planner and want to have things organized out so that she doesn't get stressed and fatigued. You like things organized out so that when it comes time to hit it hard, you'll do that. So we look at these things. Now, when we start to see this, you're up in that third quintile, and this is looking at what we call adrenal hyperplasia. And that means that the physical organ for you, as I've said before, we don't have a doctor-patient relationship. I would say that you would need to take this to your primary care physician and say, hey, you need to look at my adrenals. Is there anything physically wrong with my adrenal glands?
We're supposed to divide it by
12. Yes. And so that way we make sure that there's nothing wrong with the adrenals. You're probably in what we call a stage 3 adrenal fatigue. And what happens is you don't produce the cortisol and you don't have the precursors for cortisol, so it's hard for you to get going. I know nothing about your history, so it's hard for me to say yay or nay to that. But I would say that there is something clinically significant about that. You're in that upper third quintile, you need to watch that. But you can absolutely start working on these others in the meantime, because there's nothing that we do in functional medicine that is risky. You know, we don't cause things. We try to work with the body. We use microdoses of things to, the way I like to describe it is we don't want to pick the baby up and carry the baby over there. We want to give the baby the finger, help it up, and then walk with it. It's retraining the body to have the proper hormonal curve. Where are we at here? Yes, you are. So you tend to have more of a hypercortisol state. response. You probably thrive under pressure for a while, but then after you're done, you crash. And so what we want to do is we don't want to change that. We want to work with it and smooth it out. Especially if you're finding that you're having a hard time getting out. If you're having a hard time, let's say you're not getting your muscle mass anymore. If you can be taking your cortisol and stealing that away and aromatizing it and producing more estrogen. So muscle mass starts to go away in a guy and we start to become more estrogen dominant. And then we have a whole set of different problems. Well, like I said, everybody's different. And you've probably learned through time that to mitigate that crash, hey, I got to have everything lined up so that I don't get that. And that's what experience tells us. It's the person that just keeps their head down and tries to run through the wall that eventually ends up in a crisis. Oh, you're feeling that now, okay.
So it's 64,
All right.
28, 12, right?
Yep, 64, 28, and 12.
Oh, there it is. Okay, sorry about that.
So the next thing we want to start to look at is the depression, anxiety, and stress scale scores. This one is, it can be a little tricky, but as you have them filled out, we're going to look at stress first. I know they don't, that's why it's up here. This stress column is what we're going to look at first. All right? You don't have that paper. Look at your numbers. And you're going to take the numbers. You're going to take what you scored for number 1 and number 22. So what did you answer for number 1? Just write it on a different piece of paper. And 22. Do you need a scratch piece of paper?
No, I was trying to find this.
So take 1 and 22, and I would actually write that on a different piece of paper. Right over here. So you take 1 and 22, and what does that number equal? And you write it down. You're also going to take 6 and 27 and add it up. You're going to take 8 and 29 and add it up. You're going to take 11 and 32, 12 and 33. You're going to take 14 and 35. And last but not least, 18 and 39. Now you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 numbers. Add those 7 numbers together. And total that number up. So when I added those 7 numbers together, I came up with a 6 for me. So just so you know, this is how we start to tease out whether you have stress, anxiety, or depression. And we're teasing out, so if you are from 0 to 14, you are actually dealing with your stress in a pretty appropriate manner. I came up with a 6. So I deal with stress in a pretty appropriate manner. If you score a 15 or above, so 15 to 18 is you're having some mild issues with stress. 19 to 25 is moderate. And 26 to 33 is severe. 34 and above is extreme. If you're coming in anywhere at 19 or above, you definitely need to speak to somebody like myself or your primary care physician. Say that you're having stress and you need to start to learn how to deal with it. How do you make a plan to deal with this stress? What is stressing you? Is it financial stress? Is it relationship stress? Is it, I'm worried the world's going to blow up tomorrow stress? A comet's going to hit us. I don't know what stresses you. That doesn't stress me. Me thinking about my children and not being able to help them stresses me. So stress, once again, this is where you can start to put in appropriate things to modulate that stress. And one of the things that I do to help modulate stress is I do meditation. I say my rosary. I will meditate, pray. I go in, and I've had Val do Reiki on me. And an hour of Reiki, I got up and I was like, man, that was only about 10, 15 minutes. I looked down at my watch and an hour had gone by. And so that's when you allow your body to just relax. You allow it to decompress. And you get to tell your body, hey, it's okay. Everybody has stress. But once again, if you're way up here in the severe to extreme, then you might need a little help in the beginning, but the idea is not to stay there. The idea is to learn how to modulate that. And also, the studies now coming out about stress, anxiety, and depression as it relates to the microbiome, there are papers coming out daily about that. If you go to the National Institutes of Health, if you go to the Public Health Institute, any of those things, and look up stress in the microbiome, anxiety in the microbiome, it's coming out daily. So let's add up all the anxiety scores. First anxiety score, you're going to add together number 2 and 23. You're going to add together 4 and 25. You're going to add together 7 and 28, 9 and 30, 15 and 36, 19 and 40, 20 and 41. This is for anxiety. Add those scores up. And if just doing this process and adding these up is creating stress in your life, you might have a little anxiety and you might need to learn how to breathe. 4-7-8 breathing, box breathing. Just letting go, because in the long run, it's just a bunch of numbers. You can catch up later. It's okay. But 0 to 7 is you have a normal amount of stress or anxiety. You're dealing with this appropriately, and you can let it go. If you're in that mild 8 to 9, okay, we have some things we should probably look at and start to deal with. Anything above a 10 to 14 is moderate, severe is 15 to 19, and extremely severe is 20 or more. That needs to be, once again, looked at. You need to probably talk to your primary care physician or speak to somebody like me. I always say primary care because you get yourself checked out and make sure there's nothing life-threatening. If they look at your stuff, which typically happens, and they all come back and say, hey, you look good, or this is normal, that's when you're squarely in my wheelhouse. Last but not least, we're going to look at depression. We are looking at 3 and 24, 5 and 26, 10 and 31, 13 and 34, 16 and 37, 17 and 38, and last but not least, 21 and 42. Add those up, and that starts to tell you about depression. 0 to 9, you're handling those situations that are depressive appropriately. Mild depression is 10 to 13. So you might need a little help. You might need some coping mechanisms with this. That's where we start to deal with that. Moderate is 14 to 20, severe is 21 to 27, and extremely severe is 28 or more. When we are looking anywhere from moderate to extreme, you need to see a PCP, get checked out. I personally am not a big proponent of benzos. They're highly addictive. If you don't have an addictive personality, using those under the auspice with a primary care physician is great. Just have a plan to come off of them. You don't want to be dependent on it. But that starts to vet these things out. If you have any questions about these for me afterwards, come up and see me after this, and we will go from there. Let me make sure I covered everything. And so, actually, you can sit here and look at these things, and this starts to give you an idea of how to begin and where to begin. So, I'm going to take a second here. You're going to start snorting? So, I want to take a second and explain the power of what are called modifiable lifestyle factors, MLS. This is a gentleman that started with us in October. And I'm going to let Nurse Jessica, oh, you don't want to talk about it? Okay. So this gentleman started with us in October. His blood sugars were well over 300. And he was on how many medications for blood sugar? I know at least 2. So 3 medications for blood sugar. We just did our intervention with nutrition. We started to look at his sleep. And we're going to talk about these here in a little bit. And we started to do those interventions with him. And within 2 weeks, his blood sugar started to come down. And then when we look at him, he started at a 47. So when we look at multiple symptom questionnaire, he started at a 47. We went a couple of weeks. He started to see a slight difference in his symptoms, only about a 45, dropped a couple. And then he really started to hit it. And then he dropped his blood sugars to in the 100s. He was starting to drop them into here, in the 100s. And now he's down to a 24 in January. So when we look at an MSQ, we try to get your symptoms below 20. He is real close. He's feeling great. He's actually like, I feel great, and we need to work on the next thing, which is insulin sensitivity, but we have to go very slow with him, because if we bring him up too quickly, he'll start to go into a hypoglycemic event. And Jessica has already had that talk with him because he needs to work with his doctor. We work with the medical profession. It's not adversarial. We have to work together for your benefit. And that way, as he starts to lower his sugars, he's got to start to come off of those drugs. And we have people coming in with 12, 15 meds, and they start to get rid of them. Because once you allow the body to start to heal itself, it will. It'll self-regulate. That's what it's designed to do. Did I leave anything out there, Herman? No. So, how this works for you and who does this work for? And that's a very important thing, because we have to start to break false beliefs, and we also have to instill a little bit of hope, because this works for the person that is willing to do the work. I don't do the work. I'm a teacher. If you look at what the definition of a teacher is, the definition of a teacher or doctor is a teacher. That's the Latin, that's where it comes from, the Latin, to teach. And so I can't do the work for you. I can't do the diet, I can't do the cooking. We were actually supposed to have elite meals here to help with meal prep. They have gone through evidently they have a GI bug running through the house. And then we have a health coach from Columbus. We have Val here who does Reiki and does yoga. And so we have a great complement of people that we work with. We don't employ anybody that does that stuff. We are the one-stop shop for if your micronutrients are low. We do the IVs. Actually, we don't. Jessica does. And she has a introductory offer for new patients in your packet. but she does the IVs. You don't have to go through me for that. If you want to do an IV, a micronutrient IV, if you know you have methylation issues, some people come in prepared with that knowledge, then you can talk to Jessica. She can help you out, and that helps bring you up in the micronutrients. They're all liposomal. They hit the body great. I deal with more of the oral supplements. Oral supplementation has to go first pass through the liver. So since that, anything you take orally, that's a pill, at best you're getting 30 to 50% at best. That's first pass through the liver. She uses micronutrient IVs, they're liposomal, that's 100%. It bypasses the liver, absorbs straight into the cell, so the effectiveness of that is, as you can see, at least twice to 3 times to 4 times what we do. But if you're willing to do the work, if you're willing to do the changes, then that's great. This is for you. People worry about, is it expensive? Well, I guess you've got to really kind of consider that. We're getting ready to go through a patient that started with us that was looking at going on immunosuppressants. The copay on her immunosuppressants per year was going to be about $20,000 a year. That's going to recur every year. And it's only going to get larger because once you start one, the side effects are going to start to creep in on you, and then you're going to have another, and then you're going to have another. That's just the nature of the beast. If you know somebody that's on one medication, they're usually on multiple. And why is that? That's to modulate the other side effects. And I'm not against medication. If you have a fire, you do not want to go at a 3-alarm fire with a garden hose. You do need to call the fire station. You do need to get the fire under control. And then we're the ones that you call that come in, rip down the drywall, start to replace the studs, check the electrical before we can start to rebuild. And so you'll see that a lot of the people that we're going to show you start out up here, they drop down, and then they get worse. And then they come back down. Some get worse. Some get worse, and then they will slowly come down. It all depends on how much damage you've done and how quickly we unfold anything. So what does it cost? It'll cost money if you ignore it. It'll cost time because eventually you're going to have to address it. Whether you address it with medications or whether you address it with modifiable lifestyle factors, it'll cost you time. And it's definitely going to cost you quality of life. Because what happens when your quality, what happens, we're here for getting your mojo back, your energy back. If you're tired, do you feel like doing anything? Do you feel like getting up and going and exercising? Do you feel like going for that walk? No, you don't. So you're not going to do the things that you need to do. If you were worried that you're worried that you're not smart enough to do this, it's not hard. That's why we're here to help guide you. It's not an intelligence thing. I, for the most part in the beginning, was self-taught on this. And then I knew that there was a better way and a quicker way for my patients, and that's when I started to invest in my education. Did I leave anything out there? Are there any questions? Are there any beliefs that need to be broken that you can think of? Are there any self-doubt questions? Oh, I went too far. So why do we do this? Because we all struggle. And it's what we have learned for ourselves that allows us to help others. I knew there was a different way when my first daughter, Zoe, was born, and she had mitochondrial disease, CP, delayed onset. I didn't know the first thing. I was just a chiropractor. And everything can be cured through chiropractic. You just have to have the right adjustment at the right time, given with the right amplitude and the right force, and blah, 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 and the adjustment cures everything. It didn't matter how I adjusted her. She'd get loose for a while, but then she'd tighten right back up. Daughter number 2 comes along, same thing. Find out autosomal recessive gene on the maternal side that causes mitochondrial disorders, and there is nothing that chiropractic will do for that. There's nothing that acupuncture will do for that. Daughter number 3 has CP and had multiple drugs, and Gracie now takes no drugs. Because of what I learned with Zoe and Eliana in treating and helping with vitamins, actually Gracie didn't even have to do the vitamins. We just modified her diet, got her away from gluten and wheat, and Jessica had her doing the physical therapy and all of that stuff. She came right out of it, now takes 0 medication.
She had birth genetic.
Yeah, hers was not a genetic defect. Hers was a trauma-induced birth. So then that leads me to, okay, well, wait a minute. There is a way to treat these things with nutritionals. I was taking Zoe and Ellie to Bloomington in the 90s, and they were getting CoQ10, and they were getting magnesium, and they were getting all this stuff so that we would help their mitochondria. And it was all work. They were never supposed to walk. They were never supposed to do anything. We were supposed to confine them in a wheelchair and let them live their lives out. And they have competed in the Special Olympics. They run. They have jobs. And so Gracie's too young to have a job, but there's no doubt that that child is going to have a job and do. She is way too headstrong to not. Next is, we're looking at, if any of you guys know my mom and my dad, if you were to look at my mom and my dad, this is God's pruning me again. Because you look at my mom, she's 5'6", weighs about $120, $130. My dad's 6'2", went, 300 pounds easy. And if we had to do the morbid bet, as I would say, I'm putting all my money on mom outliving dad, because mom did the yoga, mom cooked the low fat, she watched her diet, she cooked with margarine, she did what all the science of the time said to do. Dad cooked with lard, and cooked with regular fat, and now he did cook with wild game. People were always giving him rabbits and squirrels and stuff like that. But he lived his life, and he was pretty easygoing. Went to the bar every day at 3. Was it 3? Yeah, he checked out at 3 o'clock, down to the bar, go play cards. That's what he did. Dad outlived mom by 10 years. And I had to figure that out, because I'm going, wait a minute, there's no way this should have happened. Phenotypically, the way that Dad presented is he is morbidly obese, diabetic, he's going to die early. Died at 86, 85, 86. Mom, phenotypically, was thin, looked healthy, and had either, we didn't do an autopsy, so it's either a coronary artery event or her abdominal aortic aneurysm burst. So I'm like, why does this happen? Why did mom, who exercises, walks, yogas, cooks, why does she get systolic hypertension and dies? Well, now I know going through the classes, because when you cook with margarine and you eat low fat, you are bringing on sugar, which causes hyperinsulinemia, which causes your arteries to harden, which causes you to have strokes and heart attacks. And Dad didn't care. He wanted his butter, and your body can deal with that. Now, if you're APO, there's some nuance to that. If you're APO E3/4 or 4/4, you got to be a little careful with saturated fats. But for the most part, that's the difference. Mom has the SNP. I have the SNP. Most of my kids have the SNP that they don't deal with artificial stuff like that very well, causes hardening of the arteries. We use K2, 50 micrograms a day, that helps decrease that. So that's where God puts us in the situations to teach us. And then we come back and apply it to our patients. Jessica is very passionate about a lot of things and a lot of health things, and they're different than mine. It's the hormones, it's the relationships, it's those things. So she loves that portion of it, so we make a very good team when we talk about things like that. And she deals with that, so I don't have to, and I'm not very good at it. But she has those questions because she likes to dig into them. That's why we do this, because we want everybody to live a happy, healthy, normal life. Now, old way is looking at how did we get our energy back. We wanted to use coffee or we use alcohol. And now the craze is these energy drinks. If you know people on these energy drinks, the amount of caffeine in these things is just absolutely adrenal draining. Not to mention all the other junk that's in them. The sucralose offsets the microbiome. I mean, they're just not good. So, and then drugs. You know, there's a large body of evidence now coming out that because people are tired and feel bad and they just want to feel good and they don't know how, they turn to these other things and they turn to these addictive substances because it makes them feel better. So now the new way is we actually have to start to address that first. And that's where we start to look at the adrenals first. If you're tired, you can't get up and do the things you need to do. You will be inspired for a short period of time, but long term, you really have to get these things going. And functional medicine is not easy because I can't put you in a bubble to keep you from getting a cold, to keep you from experiencing life, to keep you from getting the virus. I can't keep you from that stuff. So things are going to happen. We just have to make you healthy enough that you rebound, that you come out of it, that you don't have the cytokine storm. Because all of this stuff, especially the hormones and the neurotransmitters, this helps deal with the cytokine storm. If you don't have enough, for women, if you don't have enough estrogen on board, that affects your brain. If you don't have enough estradiol, that affects your brain. Thank God guys aren't that difficult or complex. So we deal with this in a systematic approach, and we go from neuroendocrine to GI, and then we do a detox. What happens if we don't set these other things up and we go right into killing things and doing a detox? It generally doesn't end well. No, it doesn't. You have to have the body set up so that you can excrete out the toxins. You have to have the body getting enough fiber in so that it can bind with the mercury or lead, or it binds with the excess estrogen or the estrogen metabolites and pulls them out of the body. So we got to make sure that you're using the restroom. You just can't go from 0 to 60. You have to go in stages. But everybody's in a different stage. Not everybody comes with a bunch of heavy metals and stuff like that. We just have to go do the testing to figure it out. But tonight, it's about getting you guys set on your foundation and giving you some things to look at and ask questions about on how to address. And that's where we're going to go next. So the new way is to start to set you up so can deal with it so that you're not dependent on me for your health. I don't want you dependent on me. I don't want you dependent on your medical doctor. That's not living. That's somebody else telling you how to live your life. What happens if, oh Lord, the economy drops off the face of the planet and you can't afford your metformin, or you can't afford your benzos, or you're screwed. That's no way to live, because you're dependent on someone else or something else. And even for me, I don't want you dependent on me. This is designed to happen in it. So, back down at the bottom. So you can see that when you're looking at trying to compensate, this stuff costs lives, time, quality of life, relationships. That doesn't. That brings it back. So a case study, we have improper formatting on the screen. We have a 63-year-old female getting ready to start immunosuppressives. She is suffering from anxiety, depression, fatigue. She's falling asleep at her desk. Her medical doctor has diagnosed her as pre-Guillain-Barré. She's 2 weeks away from going on immunosuppressives. Literally has the appointment to go into the pulmonologist, is going to be put on whatever the immunosuppressive is, and wants me to fix her. And so first things first, we have to address the elephant in the room. I can't prescribe. But I've seen a lot of people with autoimmune diseases who take care of their modifiable lifestyle factors. And we're talking about a lot of remove right now. So when you're looking at the R programs, the remove, the replace, the reinoculate, the rebalance, we're talking a lot about removing. And so we remove, I told her 2 weeks is really not enough time. If you can start to turn things around and feel better, you can then go to your medical doctor and ask if we can wait just a little longer. Because we're not talking about something that's going to kill her, especially if she's starting to do better and her blood studies are looking better. So she went from October to December from 130 down to a 91. And we started her on the adrenal program. We started bringing her energy back. We started to work really on what she was doing and how she was doing things. And she got better. And then, wonderful. What happens between December and January? What season is that? Yeah, goodies, sugar, your flus and colds, all of those viruses that don't live in the heat start to come out. And so she went backwards, but this is the resilience that we talk about. If your adrenals aren't fatigued, you don't get as bad as you once were. And so she went down to a 91, she bumped back up to a 104, and then in February, she came in, she was happy. Her doctor told her, you look fabulous, your blood work looks great, you don't have to go on immunosuppressives, you have done a fabulous job. So she just saved $20,000 a year. But more importantly, she's enjoying life and she's not falling asleep. Her and her husband get a garden. I told them because she's kind of a high stress, high anxiety lady. I said, hey, you guys need to go take a vacation and go just put your feet in the sand and the water somewhere and chill for a week. And the husband goes, well, we can just do that in our backyard. And she goes, I feel like doing that. And I was like, go fishing in your backyard then. I don't care where you go do nothing. Go do nothing. And allow the adrenaline come back online. This is an MSQ. My patients that are here are rolling their eyes because they fill one out every month and they're like, oh, I wish I could get that one on camera. Because they fill it out every month and the beginning of it is repetitive. But it's how we track things because it's a highly correlative finding that isn't dependent on me. I have no bearing on it. This is one of my patients who learned the modifiable lifestyle factors and is a very intelligent lady and said, I got this. I've read all those books. I listened to Dave Asprey. I can do this. Great, have at it. We're here if you need us. And so in August 27th of 2020,
You need to tell them what her symptoms were because they can't.
oh, okay. She started at a 78, and in January 10th of 2023, she comes back in at 78. Actually, that's pretty good because we have basically 3 years there, and she didn't get worse. She maintained herself. Most people will get worse, but she maintained herself. And what she was complaining of, 62-year-old female, overweight, no or low libido, headaches, and that's what she was complaining of. And we went through the stuff to start to try to flatten that out, and then she came back in and started the program, and I should be getting my next MSQ. Some of my patients aren't as compliant as filling out the MSQ as others, and we're now waiting on the next MSQ, but her next appointment is coming up, and I expect it to be better. Because I did speak to her via text, and she was very happy. Now we're looking at a 47-year-old female who had acid reflux, weight gain, bloating. So this is to show that there's hope, because everybody goes through a different experience. That is why we call it a journey, a path, because you've got to figure you out and figure out how to take care of you. For me, if I want to muck up my biochemistry, go have a couple beers, eat pizza, and here comes a rash, here comes sleepless nights, I will be on the couch itching my arm off. That's just the way that affects me. So if I want to have a measurable time, that's what I can go and do. So 47-year-old female, she acid reflux, weight gain, bloated, food baby after she eats, tired, really tired. Started out in April 1st of 2022, and she did the elimination diet fabulously well. It took her from 77 symptoms down to 31. She was feeling great. She actually was off of her PPIs. She took herself off of her PPIs. Found out she was allergic to eggs. Started to repair her gut. And as she repaired her gut, she wanted to reintroduce eggs because she liked the paleo diet and she liked the keto diet. The problem with paleo and keto is it promotes a very inflammatory bug called Bisophilio wadsworthia. And that will make you very tired because your body is always fighting inflammation. And stress, inflammation, toxins will wear a body down. So stress, inflammation, and food are the 3 things that will wear a body down. When we look at this, she started to reintroduce things. She went back up to a 70, back down to a 51, back up to 76. Wanted to get dental implants. So she had dental implants done, and when she did the dental implants, she went on several rounds of antibiotics. absolutely destroyed her gut, and she went all the way back up to a 76. She came back in and was like, hey, I'm ready. I've got this settled. And she goes, I'm really not happy. And I'm like, I understand. We just have to go through because we've set ourselves back. Antibiotics are great. They are life-saving. But we shouldn't turn to them at the drop of a dime. It's like using a sledgehammer to drive a finishing nail into the wall. You just don't need to hit it that hard. So now, from September, all she did was went back to what we taught her originally, and she went from 76 back down to 37. She came back in, just getting her energy back. She was tired. She was super, super tired and had to go back on the adrenal program for a short amount of time to rebuild her gut up, to help her thyroid out. She's actually a fascinating case. She had no eyebrows, and her eyebrows were starting to grow back. When she was in last week, I was like, you have eyebrows. She goes, well, I pencil those in sometimes. I was like, okay. And then I got up to do her BIA, and I was like, no, you legitimately have hair right here. And she's like, and so, yeah, she goes, I've never had eyebrows. So it's not always smooth sailing. Sometimes life is going to challenge you. It's going to throw you a curveball. So you just have to deal with it. So several things that we do. This is how you start to get your mojo back. We test how to do the body. We test, this is called a Dutch, and this is basically the RPM meter. We get to see how hard you're running your body. We look at the DHEA S. This will tell you somewhere on here, right here, total DHEA production. It says total DHEA production, and this person, we want you up in the upper third. This person is in the bottom half. This is a gentleman. And when we look at this and we say that, well, we know that it's too low. But we also know that Dutch, when they give you a test and they look at DHEA, they look at 3 analytes. They look at DHEAS and 2 other metabolites that come out in the body process. The other 2 metabolites aren't biologically active. You can't turn those into testosterone and then into estrogen. So we have to actually go over and look at the DHEAS. And as you can see, when we want you in the top third, this person is in the bottom third. There's not enough of the hormone to go to testosterone and then down into the other things. But when this happens, see this aromatase? Why are modifiable lifestyle factors so important? And we're coming to where we're going to really hit these. Because if you worry, especially if you're a guy, you take your testosterone and you turn it into estradiol. What I prescribe this gentleman, turn off the news, stay away from the newspaper, because it worries you. It creates depression, anxiety, stress, HPA axis dysfunction. And if you're doing the very things actively that are choices, you have to stop. Even if it's something you like. I'm German. I played soccer in Germany. I love German beer. I can't have it. Not if I, don't want to itch and don't have problems and be 300 pounds and blah, 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 diabetic and everything else. I can't do it. Some people can. It's just not me. Everybody's an individual. So we started to change that for him, and lo and behold, his hair's coming back. His hair's getting darker. I'm still waiting for that to happen. It's not happening for me yet. Let's see if I covered everything on there. So yeah, this test, the Dutch test, is how hard the car is running. This test is a test that looks at your microbiome. Because guess where your neurotransmitters come from? Guess where your hormones come from? Guess where your immune system comes from? You are only 10% human DNA. You are 90% bacterial and viral. So if you don't have a robust microbiome, you're not going to produce these things. This person, this is a 24-year-old female. No periods. Stopped having it. And comes to me, hey, I'm having headaches, I'm not having any periods, has acne. We're looking at a traditional PCOS kind of presentation. And so we're looking at this. She's really low on several species. She's moderately low on 3 species. She only has 3 species of her microbiome that are in the normal range. And when we look at that, we're like, oh, your 2 biggest phyla, they're at the bottom. She can't physically produce these things. And if we don't change the modifiable lifestyle factors, I can throw all the probiotics, all the hormones, we can throw all the pharmaceuticals that we want at you. It's not going to change. Actually, I'm going to take a quick break. We're going to go over. Sorry, I don't know how StreamYard's going to handle that. Sorry, I'm wrong. But Val, would you like to take a second and talk about your experience with hormones? Because she was a hormone case. And what happened. But this is one of the things that the earlier you get on this, the faster it changes for you. I waited until I was 50. Now you can stand right about here so they can see you.
Oh, cool. Yeah, this was a really cool. I got to see my microflora, which I had some read and whatever. But what I learned is like how important it is to eat for your gut, for sure. Because when I went to Dr. Miller, I was really anxious. I was very nervous. Like I did a lot of yoga. I'm a yoga teacher. I do Reiki healing. It's like this, you know, healing modality, like Dr. Miller was saying, it's just very, very relaxing. But I still had stress. Like I was still anxious. I still had anxiety pretty easily. Like on that whatever, filling out the numbers and everything. Like
The questionnaire.
the questionnaire. Like getting up and talking in front of people. I remember I stood up and talked before I did the program with you a couple years ago, and I was freaking out. Like it was literally like a traumatic event just for me to stand in front of people. And now I'm like, I get a little flush. It's probably just like a pattern thing because I'm just, you know, the anxiety maybe it's just like a learned behavior. But it's much, much more under control just because of like this stuff, like eating to feed my microflora. And then, so I thought I would never see my abs in this lifetime. I came to Dr. Miller. I was working out literally 6 or 7 days a week. I was working with a nutrition coach, eating more protein. Like I was doing pretty good. I was learning a lot about nutrition, but I just had a lot of bloat and belly. And working with Dr. Miller, doing this stuff, I feel like I have like a core. It's so crazy. Like I feel like I have strength, and the energy came back for me really well. Like I would have parts of my day I work for myself sometimes. Past few years I have, but I'd have lulls in my day where I would really bottom out. Like I would have to just drink caffeine. Like you talk about energy drinks, I was like the queen of the E-shot energy drink. Like, but like. Now I drink caffeine, I'll drink coffee on occasion, it's not a daily thing, but just the energy is just there. I drink water and it gives me energy. I eat and I'm not bloated after I eat, which is really cool. And I also actually don't run as much as I used to run. I used to run every single day as a way to like stay fit and keep my arms skin tight, like, you know, lose weight, keep the fat down. But now I actually don't do that. I can live and eat to keep my weight under control, my fat.
Mind if I ask you a couple of questions?
Yeah, go for it. Shoot.
So, do you mind if I reveal a little of your case?
Yeah, reveal it all.
Okay. So, what we did with her, because she is so young, we actually did a 28-day cycle. So we did a Dutch 28-day, and we did Biome FX. And with her, when we did these things, what she ended up seeing was that she was stressed. She was not in balance. Everything in life, everything with us is about balance. It's not about being so much one way or the other. And when we saw that happen with her, we started to smooth out the cortisol, and we smoothed out the hormones, but we addressed those. How did we address those? We got rid of the processed foods, we got rid of the powders and the potions, and we went to just real foods. You had a couple things that you liked that you kept, but we got rid of those things and you ate real food. And then what happened? Because I'm going to be cheeky here, there was something that you didn't think would happen, and it happened.
Oh, yeah. So I was doing this, and like right towards the end of our working together, I got pregnant.
I didn't do it.
And yeah, that was like the best part ever, because he told me, he's like, no more energy drinks. Stay away from the caffeine, like these chemicals, these protein shakes, no, like just no. And when I got pregnant, my body was like, I don't want caffeine, I don't want all these chemicals. So then I obviously took it out when I was pregnant, and my skin cleared up. Like, after I gave birth to Malachi, my skin stayed so clear, so great.
And so this is one of the cases that was fairly easy because she's so young, she's already healthy. But now she quit her former job and she teaches Reiki and yoga and move over, Elf. I don't want to get in the frame. I've been on the frame. So she teaches Reiki and yoga. She helps others. She's now called for that. And that purpose is worth more to us. I say us because Jessica could be at the hospital making a whole lot more money than she makes. I could be one of those racking and stacking chiropractors. I was in a former life. But it's not about that. It's about giving people back their lives. And then having a newborn come in that was never thought to be able to happen, and is just a happy baby, happy-go-lucky. Those are the stories. That's what's important.
I never wanted kids. I was too stressed. I didn't have time for all
I
that.
told her it might happen. I didn't this way. I told you it might happen. But that is just, that's how powerful the modifiable lifestyle factors are. And that's not a magic Dr. Miller. Like I said, there's 2,000 other guys like me that do this on the daily as well. And we're not doing it. You all do the work, and it happens for you. Does it happen overnight? No, you didn't get this way overnight. I waited 40 years before I started to address this stuff. And I thought I was doing it right. I tried to outrun it by doing Ironman and half Ironman and umpteen million different types of triathlons and whatnot. It doesn't work. You just run yourself into the ground. Thank you.
Yep.
Oh, and if you want to ask her questions about Reiki, are you going to hang out a little bit after?
Yeah, I'll be in.
She's going to be here. She can talk to you about it. I actually think, are you still doing your little 15-minute sessions and stuff? So you can experience that. I highly recommend it. It is great to actually do that and relax, because that's what I like about it, is the relaxation. Because most people don't relax. I used to be the, hey, I'll sleep when I die. I will,
this is how it's going to be. And if you think that way, well, you're going to be dead before you know it because it will kill you. And last but not least, if the Dutch is your speedometer and tachometer, your GI map is what are the components in the car. Does the car have everything that it needs to run appropriately? When we see that you have keystone species that aren't there, we have to address that. And we don't address that first and foremost with throwing a bunch of probiotics at it. We address that by increasing fiber, increasing prebiotics, increasing postbiotics, trying to do those things. Because otherwise, you're going to be buying probiomed for the rest of your life, and that's just not. I'd rather eat a red pear and an apple and some pomegranates and avocados rather than take a pill. It's just not a lot of fun, and get tired, quite frankly, of taking a handful of pills all the time. So the omics is looking at what's in the gas tank. It looks at the blood, what's in the serum, what's in the gas tank. And then it also looks at what's coming out. So do we have the right exhaust in the right manners so that the body can run appropriately? And if we don't, then we can get in there and tweak what needs to be done. So, how can you start to fix this? Here is the most important part of all of this. If the slides will work. Sleep. How much sleep should you get a night?
8 hours.
You should shoot for 8 hours. Should you have to use melatonin, Tylenol PM, blah, blah, blah PM to do that sleep? No, because that's not sleep. If I hit you with a bat, you're unconscious, you are technically asleep, but do you rest? Do you repair? No. And that's when you sleep, that's when your lymphatics in the brain open up. And that's when you clear out tau, which has been linked to Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, dementia, neurodegenerative diseases. When you get into a very deep, relaxed state and you lose time, that is when the body, and for those of you that can't see me pointing at the Reiki practitioner bow, because I lost time when I go in there, when you relax like that, when you get into a very deep meditative state, and you can measure that with an aura ring, you can look at your heart rate variability. When you increase heart rate variability and decrease stress, what that does for you is that allows you to start to sleep. And that allows the brain, especially when you go to sleep. So money time sleep between the hours of 10 and 2. You need to be in bed. I know this sounds wild. I used to stay up till midnight, blah, blah, blah. I try to go to bed by 9 o'clock because if you're in bed between the hours of 10 and 2, that is what Sean Stevenson, who wrote, I forget which book on sleep, and there's a Matthew Walker who wrote Why We Sleep. But that 10 and 2 is when your body shuts down, produces all of the neurotransmitters and the serotonin, and the brain cleans out. So if you have an aura ring, this is when you hit your deep sleep, because that's how important it is. Your body wants to go right into deep sleep. It wants to take care of the important stuff first, and it wants to maintain itself. Then you come out of that deep sleep, and you start to go into your REM sleep and your other sleeps, which that's when you start to dream and blah, 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 blah. But if I drink a glass of wine, my aura ring says body temperature elevates. Deep sleep compresses from, I get about 2 hours of deep sleep a night now, down to about 30 to 45 minutes is what will happen to me. When I started to heal myself, I was only getting 30 minutes of deep sleep a night. And it has literally taken me 3-4 years to get to where my sleep is now. Deep sleep is 2 hours, and that is very important to me because I have a family history of dementia, Alzheimer's, and all of that stuff, and I am APOE 3/4. So that means that I am prone to hypercholesterolemia and all of that bad stuff that you hear about in the news. So sleep, 7 to 8 hours. I guess I got to point it that way. 7 to 8 hours per night, unaided. People generally have two problems with this. They have problems with initiation or maintenance. If you have problems with initiation, look at your habits before you go to sleep. Are you watching television? Are you on a screen? If you're watching TV or on a screen, blue light blocking glasses, if you follow me on Instagram or Twitter or whatever all the other social media things are, that just gives me a headache. If you're on those, you've already heard me talk about sleep and blue light blocking glasses and starting to turn off the lights. Jess goes through the house and at about 7 o'clock starts turning off all the lights. And if we're going to sit down and watch television, I'm a nerd and I have the blue light blocking glasses. She has some somewhere, but she doesn't seem to affect her the way that it affects me. So I'm just a little more sensitive than she is. If you have problems with maintenance, every person that I have dealt with sleep maintenance, meaning they get to sleep and they're waking up at 2 or 3 in the morning, is hyperinsulinemia. They are becoming insulin resistant. And so they're waking up, and the way you know this is you wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning and you are ready to start that day. You wake up and it's like, and it's almost like Bugs Bunny in one of those old cartoons, and he's running around like crazy. And then after about an hour to an hour and a half, what happens? You're tired, crash. You go lay back down, you're like, it's 4 in the morning, I got 2 hours before I have to wake up. And then you try to wake up at 6 o'clock and you are dragging nuts. You most likely have a problem with insulin. If you are dealing with a primary care provider, it is not a blood sugar test, it is an insulin test. You have to do a fasting insulin, and after you do the fasting insulin, if that comes back normal, you're not in the woods yet. Now you need to do what pregnant women do, and you need to do a glucose challenge test, just to make sure that your body responds normally. Women seem to be a little more carb glucose tolerant than men, and they seem to be able to just kick out these super physiological doses of insulin, and it's not good. Once again, it's about balance. You don't want time for your insulin shoots through the roof and then bottoms out. You want insulin to just kind of go along. You want blood sugar to just kind of go along. You don't want 40, 50, 60 point swings. The more consistent you can keep that, the better off you are. It's really hard for me to pick between nutrition and movement, because these two are linked together. They are Siamese twins. You cannot say that one is more important than the other, carte blanche. And some people who are sedentary, movement is more important than the nutrition, because nutrition comes easy for them, but getting up and going out doesn't. Some people who love to run marathons and Ironmans and half Ironmans, I want to go, when I'm done, eat pizza and drink beer because I've earned it. Doesn't work that way. You need both. So movement wasn't hard for me. I used to work out 20 hours a week. It was a part-time job. I've got a saddle from my racing days on the wall that's got over 10,000 miles on it. So that's not a problem for me. But nutrition absolutely is. What do you need? It's super simple. Whole, real food. If you can get it regeneratively, that is best. Organic is next. And then if you live in North Vernon, do the best you can. And if you're going to Walmart and shopping, make sure you clean your fruits and vegetables. Lots of them are genetically modified, and to be genetically modified, they harvest them using glyphosate. And guess what has been identified as the #1 microbiome killing ingredient that you can touch? Glyphosate. Absolutely. Glyphosate is a bomb going off in your gut. So if you cannot have organic, regenerative foods and stuff like that, then you have to clean it up as best you can. There is a great website called the Environmental Working Group, ewg.org, and they have like the clean 15 and the dirty 10 or something, dirty dozen and the clean 15. So these are the foods that if you cannot go get regenerative and all the other fancy stuff, which we have a hard time here, if you stick to this list of like 15 clean foods, they typically are not treated with a lot of junk. But you can also use stuff like Eat Cleaner and stuff like that that is known to remove these chemicals. So, whole real food. Yes, you can cook it. It doesn't have to be raw. Typically, cooking food changes how it affects the microbiome a little bit, but it doesn't really do it in a bad way. So, what was that?
You're supposed to cook for your family.
Wait a minute, I employ you. And that, you know what? She actually brings up a good point. I do cook at the clinic.
Very good.
And so I'm very lucky to do what I do and own my building. So I have a kitchen and I do cook for myself and staff. And not always, I mean, I gotta be honest, it's not always. And sometimes she won't eat what I cook. But with that being said, for those of you that can't, you need to find something like Elite Meals or a food prep place, or cook your stuff the night before. When I was single and living by myself and had my kids, I would just cook a lot with them, and then I would freeze my leftovers, and that's what I would eat. And I am the leftover king. At home now, Jess doesn't eat leftovers. Gracie's getting a little better about it. Casey won't touch them. So I cook a big meal and there's all these leftovers and I just start grabbing dishes and I take them to the clinic and that's what I eat. That way I don't go out and have a Big Mac or I don't. Because that's when you get in trouble. When you're unprepared and you're out running around and you're caught short, oh, you know, I'll go to Chipotle this time because Chipotle's better. That's great, but I don't know what oils they use. If you look in your packets, you'll see that there's a list of oils and their smoke points. So if you're eating foods that are prepared in oils, usually fried, if you're not the first fry of the day, even with avocado oil and some of the others, you're getting what are called advanced glycation end products. And these are the things that age you. Ages bind with rages in the body, which are receptors for advanced glycation end products, and they age you from the inside out. I forget what all's in there. I know we have the kitchen cleanouts in there. So if you're getting ready to work on nutrition, make sure you clean out your kitchen and you don't have vegetable oil, canola oil, because you don't want to cook with that very low smoke point, turns to an oxidative reactive species, and you're injuring yourself. You're causing the mitochondria damage. Movement. I love movement. I have a 3-hour break in the middle of the day from 12 to 3. She keeps trying to steal it. And
I do not.
that is because I used to go on my bike rides. And I want to get back to that. Summertime's getting here, so I've already been on 2-3 bike rides last week. That's all going to start. I don't know if I'll get back into running or not. I don't know. Running
Just stick with your
really hard on the body.
Dance.
You know,
You love your bike.
I'm 52. I don't need to run from anybody.
Yes, you do.
So how much movement? About 30 minutes a day. Every day. If you can't do anything else, get out and go for a walk. If you have the inclination, then you want to start to add some resistance to it. And if you can work out with some resistance 3 to 4 times a week for 30 minutes, you're doing great things for your body. If you're above the age of 50, you should be doing some resistance exercises. Whether that's push-ups, squats, wall sits, whatever the case may be, you have to challenge the body. You have to challenge the muscles, because if you don't, the body looks at the muscle as very expensive material and will get rid of it. And that's when we start to have sarcopenic obesity, and we get the little bat wings on our arms, and we're fluffy, and that stuff is highly inflammatory. How much yoga, stretching, balance should you do? You should go 3 to 4 times a week doing balance exercises. Because guess what? If you fall and break a hip, that's putting you in a home. If Jess was here, I would ask her, if somebody falls and breaks their hip, how long are they down for, number one? Number two, what's the incidence of death? I think it's usually most people over 60 plus years of age, if they fall and break their hip, the incidence of death is within like 5 years or something. That it's a mortality indicator. And then if you ask people, did you hear the pop first and then you fell? Or did you fall and then hear the pop? A lot of times they hear the pop first. So I want to take a second to go back to nutrition.
You only have 4%.
Yeah, that dies at night. Okay. So when we look at nutrition, sodas are carbonated beverages create carbolic acid in the body. You have enough buffering capacity in your body to buffer out 1 can of soda. Not can of soda, the original cans, and it'll only do 3/4 of that, roughly. So where does your body get the rest of the calcium, phosphorus, magnesium that it needs to make that a base? You're right, bone, teeth. So carbonated beverages, no mas, no good. I haven't had a soda in forever. I tried to take a sip of one not too long ago, and my palate has changed so much I can't stand it. So I'm just like, hey, that's a bonus. Stress. Oh, stress. This one is such a hard one to deal with, because you have to be able to let go. If you can't let go, stress will eat you alive. And I used to not be able to let go. Stress raises cortisol, which over a long period of time will deplete your hormones, will deplete your DHEA, will deplete things, and it will cause you to go into adrenal fatigue. Adrenal fatigue will turn around and start to cause your thyroid to go into a hypothyroidic state. It'll cause you to have leaky gut. It is not something that you want to mess with. So, more importantly, do you have a routine to deal with stress? Once again, it takes me about 15 minutes to do a rosary. What does your body like to do when it wants to de-stress? It wants ease and repetition. I'm not saying do a rosary, because if you don't know how to do a rosary, you've got to remember a whole bunch of different prayers, and that's going to cause stress. But sit down and meditate. Sit down and breathe. Your box breathing. 4, 4, 4, 4. 4 in, 4 hold, 4 out, 4 hold, 4 in, hold. That's easy to do, box breathing. That's that repetition. I personally will see my stress change on your ring if I'm doing 4, 7, 8. I will go in for 4. I will hold for 7. And then I will blow out through my mouth for 8. And I will do that at least 6 to 10 times. Usually on about the 4th or 5th, I feel like somebody has poured water over me. And it's just like, ah. And I know I've reached that state where it has calmed down. So that's important. Reiki is important. Yoga is important. Prayer is important. Meditation is important. Whatever it is that allows you to sit down and be present with yourself and take a step back. And what is stressing me out? I had to talk to and apologize to Jessica earlier. I know I'm on edge. I got this talk. I have an hour to do it, and it ain't going to happen. And so, I was biting her head off today. And that's just where I'm like, okay, stressed out. Uh-oh, wrong way. Next is community. Hold on. And why do I say community? Because if you are hanging out with, let's say I'm hanging out with my old college soccer players, what are we going to do after the ball game? We're going to go out. We're going to have a drink after the game. We're going to eat crappy food. And because we're 20-somethings, we can take that hit. Little do we know that when we're 40-somethings, those hits that we took when we were 20 will matter. And so they catch up. So the quicker that we can teach our 20-year-olds that, hey, it's okay to celebrate. It's okay. It doesn't matter what religion, what belief system you have. They all celebrate. They all have times of feast. They all have times of family. It's a normal process. You just can't do it every day or even every week because our bodies are designed to deal with scarcity. We are not designed to deal with abundance. And they're not designed for me to go over time. So, just ask yourselves a question. Of the information that you heard tonight, how many of your PCPs have taken this kind of time to talk to you about this stuff? And I'm not faulting them. They don't have the time. They are literally slaves to the insurance company and to administration. There's so much lost knowledge there. You all that pay insurance premiums should be livid that brain trust is not being used because of administration and because of insurance companies. We are all suffering because of that.
Sometimes they just don't know.
And true, sometimes they just don't know. But when we look at that, they have to adhere to standard of care. This line comes from Dr. Terry Walls' book called The Walls Protocol. If you don't know who Dr. Terry Walls is, she had progressive aggressive MS, was in a tilt recline wheelchair, had access to the best medical science available to her, and was getting nowhere, was continuing to go downhill. She started to do the research, and she started to heal herself. And she came out and said, well, interesting, in my studies, I found out that standard of care, the practice of medicine, is 17 years behind the research. And the funny thing is you hear the pharmaceutical companies talk about, oh, you need science. Well, we have the science. They just don't have the billions of dollars that the pharmaceutical companies have to market it. But it's out there. Go to the National Institutes of Health, look up microbiome. Go to the National Institutes of Health and look up high fiber diet and how that helps with estrogen dominance. Check it out. You have to do the work because they're not going to make it easy for you. I am amazed when I watch television now at just how much, I'm believing that, how much propaganda is on television. And it literally makes me sick to sit here and watch this stuff and hear them talk about pharmaceutical after pharmaceutical after pharmaceutical. We're the only country in the world now that allows direct marketing to the people for pharmaceuticals. It's unbelievable. So as you've seen and heard, there's hope, there's a different way. Uh-oh, now we jumped in there early. So for those of you that aren't patients of ours, Tina's going to have some appointment times, and I'm going to talk about several different opportunities. You can dip your toe in, or you can jump right in, as you will see. We do a 20-minute consult. Generally, it's $150 value. We do a functional medicine questionnaire, not the big one, not yet, because I'm not going to put that much time into it until you show me that you want to change. That's about $100 value. We do the bioimpedance analysis. What this does for you is this looks at your body fat, it looks at health of the cell, it looks at water compartmentalization, so we know how and what things are doing in your body. We will do a posture screen. That's a value of $150, and we'll do some pain points because guess what? If your mitochondria are tired, they can't clear out waste material, you will hold on to histamine and other things, and you'll have pain points. We call that fibromyalgia. And we can start to check those out and see if you're having a mitochondrial issue, which will also deal with your energy issues, which will also affect your adrenals. Do you see how this all stays interwoven? You can't just pick one piece out and be good with it. But that's a $650 value. We will do that for $99. Talk to Tina. If you want to go a little bigger, opportunity number 2 is all of number 1, which I have a typo there, $650, plus the Heidelberg test. So this test is looking at your stomach, looking at stomach acid, because we know that that is the first line of defense. And if your stomach acid is not up to snuff, then that allows for SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. It allows bad players to come in. It allows your stomach to get infected. You can have H. pylori. That's one of the infections we look for on the GI map. So we can find out if that's actually working. We are the only clinic in Indiana that has this test. There's no hospital, no clinic, nobody else in Indiana has this test. Actually, I think the next closest place is down in Atlanta, Georgia. $750 value, we go through the report of findings with that. That's a $2,100 value, and we will do that for $299. Please, my existing functional medicine patients, don't be mad at me. We're trying to help more people. Opportunity number 3, we include 1 and 2. We go into the 3-hour in-depth exam. For my patients that are here, this is a very different type of exam. We look at physical indicators, we look at the mouth, we look at the tongue, we look at the skin, we do the BIA, we do all of this stuff, and we start to get a very comprehensive picture of you
We look at the antecedents, triggers, and mediators. We sit down with you and go through your timeline of what has happened. And we start to get a good picture of you. We see that that's, once again, about 3 hours. Functional medicine tests, we do the Dutch, the omics, and the GI map. This is where you guys that are my functional medicine people can be happy because they just raised those tests in there, 4,500. I did do a deal for you guys that they won't raise them yet. But for new patients, they have raised those, and that's a $4,500 value. 4 micronutrient IVs, because everybody that we have tested so far comes back with a bad microbiome, bad micronutrients. So these 4 IVs, they are up to a $1,200 value. We do add the glutathione, we do the other things. And all of that, this is actually starting the functional medicine program with us. We do we try to do about a year. Some of our patients get done in 3 months. Some of our patients get done in a couple of years. Some of our patients are still with us because we're still trying to figure out what exactly is the truth. But the tests here give us a good solid year of stuff to work on. We do monthly monitorings. We get the plan of action. Total value there is about $1,150, and now that is $49.99. So if you have any questions, Tina does not have scheduled appointments for this. She has appointments for the 20-minute consult 1 and 2. So if you're interested in doing something like that, talk to Tina. She has some times, and she will be happy to get you scheduled. Otherwise, if you want to do the test where we do the year planning plus, then you have to schedule for a morning because that is literally all morning. If we have any questions, I do have to include that does not include supplements because I don't know what you need. And if you need us, that's how you contact us. I'm going to sign off on StreamYard. We'll be here for questions. You all have a great evening. Thank you for being with us.